This is Karl and Phil Lenir for Talking Management for the Globe and Mail. The last couple times we've been talking about the 4 key stages in the typical manager's career. The first one is going from superstar performer to manager. The second is from manager to leader, which we'll be talking about today. And the third is going from manager to the C-suite. Not everyone does that, but a lot of people certainly want to do that. And the fourth one is one I see increasingly among my boomer friends who go from being executives or managers to being entrepreneurs. So the 4th stage in a lot of managers' careers these days. So today we want to focus on that key stage that you go from manager to being a leader. Now, Phil, not everyone goes from being a manager to a leader, but what I would argue that these days, because of what's happening in our economy, the kind of changes we see, difficulties like a high Canadian dollar or a low US dollar if you're in the States, difficulties like global competitors coming from around the world to North America to press us, all sorts of things going on out there, that we need leadership not just at the top in the C-suite, but we need it throughout the organization. Now, my colleague Henry Mintzberg often talks these days, the last couple of years, and has complained about the superstar CEO. We kind of worship this guy or woman who is the CEO, and we look to them as the savior of the organization. And Henry talks about an article from Fortune magazine back in the mid-90s when Lou Gessner became a CEO of IBM and had helped turn it around. And the article seemed to suggest that Lou had done it single-handedly. That Lou had added billions of dollars to the stock price of IBM. Now, I think Lou would be the first to say that it wasn't just him, it was a team effort, absolutely. But the fact is that I think we need to have leaders throughout the organization, from the C-suite for sure, but all the way down to the first level managers, and in fact the first level employees, that we need to have a lot more leaders. Maybe not every manager is going to be a leader, but I would certainly think we need a lot more of them throughout our managerial ranks.
That's a very important point. You know, and it's a misconception that, I had myself as I was becoming a manager and then a leader, and you had this idea that, well, the CEO, he's the leader, so he's going to make the decisions, and me as a manager, my role is going to be very functional and, achieve my goals and go forward. I remember one of the key moments for me was when I finally realized that, hey, as a manager, I don't just, I shouldn't be just achieving my goals. I should also be thinking about perhaps things where I can improve, make things better around here, improve, and these sort of areas. And when I started, one of the key things that I set myself to was to develop my team members and make them better as leaders themselves, as team leaders, as team members. So that was a big change for me.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I think this is a common thought, that strategy comes from the top and the rest of us just execute. So the great one has a vision, which is passed down. It's almost like Moses with the 10 Commandments, being handed down, then we just salute and we go do it. And the thought is, well, our strategy doesn't come from God, it comes from people. And not only that, but it emerges. And this is a point that we've talked a lot about in strategy for the last dozen years, is strategy emerges from throughout the organization, not just from the top. In fact, the job of the top is in some ways just to recognize new directions, encourage them, provide resources, and those that do well, those who really resonate with the marketplace and the environment we're in, is to give them resources and push them forward, as opposed to coming up with the idea themselves. So if you take that view of strategy, it means that we can have leadership occurring throughout the organization. Now, what I mean by leadership versus management, and kind of quibble about this, but to me one of the essential characteristics of leadership is about change. And so the leader helps an organization or a business unit, whatever it might be, what level they are, take the organization or their part of the organization to a better place, hopefully a better future anyway. But it's saying that we're at mismatch with our environment, whether it's the customers, whether it's the manufacturing, the high dollars we mentioned, whatever it might be, there's a mismatch, or we see an opportunity to get advantage over our competitors and be more successful, more effective as an organization. To mine, that's the heart and soul of leadership. Which means that leadership can come from anywhere in an organization. In fact, you don't have to be a manager to be a leader, in the sense that a customer service agent on the telephone at Bell or Air Canada can say, wait a minute, we're doing something not best for the customer. Let's change this to do it more effectively. We can see it from a viewpoint of a secretary where their boss can be more efficient in their job because the secretary changes how they do things and gets them organized differently. And I think any good leader really spends a lot of time listening and looking for ideas from various people and supporting them. Now, the advantage a manager has over the rest of employees is they have greater resources available to them.
Right.
They also have a position in the organization where they have some authority where they can take changes forward more effectively, and they have credibility with senior management, so they can get even more resources. So in my mind, a key part of leadership these days is about change and taking us to a better place.
Yeah, and at that point, I mean, that's very, very important. And I remember from my own experience, again, you know, you start off as a manager and you just feel overwhelmed with all the details and all the bits and pieces that go into to getting the job done and achieving the goals. And then you sort of realize that, well, I can also improve things and do things around here, and you can get over this, at least I was for a while, almost paralyzed, because I was so trying to get everything done and achieve the goals that I just didn't feel like I had time to do anything else. And once I got over that idea and said, you know, yeah, I can actually do something else, I can change, I can improve a process, I can go outside of the scope of my specific goals, and then the next time I come around to it, it's going to be much better, and I will improve things.